Hi, today I'm going to be talking about the three articles I read about cloud computing. So there are two that are academic perspective studies from 2008, a conference paper on cloud architecture from 2012, and then the last one is an industry piece from InfoWorld, also from 2008. In this video, I'll walk you through what I learned from each one and close on how they connect together. So these are the articles that I'm going to be talking about today. First one is Cloud Computing, a Perspective Study by Wang, von Lazwski, Kunze, and Tao. And the second one is Cloud Computing, Concepts, Architecture, and Challenges by Jahia and Modi. And then the third, What a Cloud Computing Really Means by Eric Knorr and Galen Gruman of InfoWorld. So the first article is the perspective study. So this was written in 2008, right as the term cloud computing was starting to emerge. So a lot of people are still trying to pin down a definition that didn't really exist back then. And my biggest takeaway was their proposed definition. A cloud is a set of network enabled services that provide scalable quality of service guaranteed and inexpensive computing infrastructure on demand. What I found most useful was how they broke cloud services into layers. So there's the hardware as a service, software as a service, data as a service, and infrastructure as a service, sitting on top of all three. I hadn't realized IaaS was originally framed as something that emerges from combining hardware and software and data services rather than being its own separate category. They also listed the technologies that make cloud computing possible: virtualization, service orchestration, Web 2.0, distributed storage systems, and programming models like MapReduce and Hadoop. That gave me a much clearer picture of of the buzzword cloud computing. And then the second article, I'm going to be talking about the Hadeha and Modi's concepts, architecture, and challenges. I do apologize if I am butchering the authors' names as I apologize for that. And anyways, the second article is from 2012. It felt more like reading something from like a textbook. And my main learning here was the front end and back end architecture model. The front end is the client's device and application, and the back end is the actual cloud infrastructure connected over the internet and coordinated by middleware. So, from the first article, we were talking about the perspective study. This one is more on the architecture, as the title suggests. This article gave me a clean breakdown of the SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS service models with real examples like Salesforce and Google Apps for SaaS, Google App Engine and Microsoft Azure for PaaS, and GoGrid and Amazon EC2 for IaaS. I also learned the four deployment models: public, private, hybrid, and community cloud, and the trade offs between them, mainly costs versus control and security. And finally, the article was honest about the downsides: security, privacy, reliability, and replication costs are still real concerns, not only outages you read occasionally, like the 2009 Gmail outage they mentioned. So, the second article, um, to be honest, since I've made the video I recorded last week or last 2 weeks ago, I've already delved into the security concerns and the trade-offs between the cloud services, which is this article just gave me a refresher. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about Noor Grumman's What cloud computing really means. So this article, the third one, is a completely different tone. It's not an academic article. It's a business journalism piece from InfoWorld. So it came through in how practical it was. Their core point was that cloud computing was already being used so loosely in 2008 that it needed to be broken down into distinct categories to really mean anything. They identified seven types: the SaaS, utility computing, web services in the cloud, platform as a service, managed service providers, service commerce platforms, and internet integration. What stood out to me was how many of these categories still map directly onto the services we know today, like the still we use today, even though they come to they some of the companies that were mentioned in the article no longer existed, like Coghead or Grand Central, which I was a bit perplexed by because I wasn't familiar with the companies that they mentioned in the article. Anyways, my biggest takeaway from this was their framing of cloud computing. It was not as one technology, but they thought about it as a business need and the ability for IT to add capacity or capability on demand without new infrastructure, staff, or licensing. That's a much more grounded definition than the more technical ones in the previous two academic papers. To conclude, I'd like to tie them all together, like how these three articles made sense to me. So there's like a pattern with this because if we look back on the first one, the Wang et al. Paper, it's more focused on defining what cloud computing is and what it's enabling technology. And then the Jia De Ha and Modi paper is focused on the architecture, how it's structured and deployed. And the Noor and Grumman article is focused on business value, why any of this matters to a company. Reading all three together gave me a fuller perspective than anyone would have because of the terminology, the technical layers, and the practical reasoning behind why organizations actually adopt cloud services. As mentioned in the previous videos, it's really important to know what cloud computing is, and these articles really helped me understand the different viewpoints, like the different perspectives. Like it's from a business perspective and from like what it actually is, and then like the architecture of it all. It all makes sense like now in like because the articles were written in 2008 and 2012, where it was just like cloud computing was just beginning. Now that it's so normalized in our day-to-day basis, like I use iCloud and I use Google Drive and I pay for these cloud services. like like these article gave me a much clearer perspective along with the lectures of what cloud computing is and why it's important to businesses and individuals and like all that stuff. And yeah, I think the three articles were really interesting to read as they gave different viewpoints. And yeah, thank you for watching my video. My name is Sharina Glee Nadera, and my student ID is K2400664. And yeah, I really enjoyed reading all the three articles, and thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Bye!